All right, cool. So, so it's going to be pretty chill. Let me present this, okay, so this is an actual home that I am looking at for some clients that we'll probably go see tomorrow morning. So the first thing I do, this is the first picture. I'm looking at this and there's just a few things that just jump out of me immediately. I'm kind of doing this in real time too. So, okay, right here, this joist right here, this rim board, okay, that's probably a 2x8. It's gonna probably start sagging because this seems like way too big of a span for a 2x8 to go across. And actually, you kind of look closely, and yeah, we do see a little sagging right here. Then kind of look down. Okay, we have 4x4 posts, which is fine, but now codes are 6x6 that you want for your joist. So I wouldn't say that has a lot of, I mean, it looks like a fairly newer deck, so maybe like 10 years ago, but it might get like another 10 15 years out of it. I'd have to replace, so something to prepare for on that. Okay, if they have kids, I'm looking at the stairway right here, and there's nothing blocking like a kid like crawling through there and just falling right onto these rocks and falling all the way down this hill. And then I also see, okay, we got this is below 30 inches right here, so you want about 30 inches, and more than 30 inches you want a railing on this.
What are you talking about, 30 inches, Jim?
Sorry, yeah, please stop me if it's something that's not clear. Yeah, so between the grade, the dirt here,
yeah,
and the walkway,
yeah,
if it's over 30 inches, you're going to want a railing on that.
Okay.
So if it's under 30, then it's not really required. Of course, that kind of changes a little bit, but I'm kind of going off the International Residential Code and International Building Code, which is pretty common for most places in the country and the world to use.
Okay.
And then let's see what else. All right, going up here, well, that I can see that meter is kind of an older meter. Not too bad, but just want to make sure that this in conduit, which actually that might not be in conduit right here. What else quickly? All right, let's go upstairs. Let's go up here. All right, so this right here, that vent is way too small for that size of an attic. I don't really see any vent on, you got this one tiny gable vent, but that's not nearly big enough. You want to get as much ventilation into the attic really as possible. I've never really seen a house that got too much ventilation. And I hear people like, oh, well, I don't want too much because I want to keep it, warmer in the winter. Okay, you might have it a little warmer in there, but you don't have the airflow. You can get mold. During the summer, it's going to trap a ton of heat. And actually, where most of your air conditioning is lost isn't through the walls or the windows. It's actually through your roof. And if you've ever been like an older house, you're going to go up like on upstairs. It's freaking hot because it doesn't have as much insulation inside there. So definitely want to get this needs to be like 5 times bigger at least. And then I also have on these overhangs here, I would put in some vents to really get the attic ventilated. So that's just one picture. So that's just kind of what runs through my mind as I'm looking at this.
Would any of those be like of concerns for clients? Like if you were out at this property with your client, are those things that you're going to be letting them know like, hey, this is my thought?
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of my value, and kind of set myself away from other realtors, because this is something I've been doing literally my entire life until I got out of it a year ago. So my first project I was working on was 4 years old. I was nailing down boards on a deck, and so I grew up in a construction company. So yeah, kind of my whole entire life. So this is kind of just, I just look at something and this is kind of obvious to me, just like it would be for anyone who just had dealt with it every day of their life.
But would those be concerns, like not detractors from purchasing this home?
So yeah, the thing is, this is nothing that I've gone through here is really that uncommon.
Okay.
You show me any home and I'm probably going to be able to point out a lot of this stuff.
Sure.
The big kind of concern, which is, here's the deal. So I actually did just see that they have in this house, why it's sitting right now and why we might be able to pick this up, is because there was mold up in the attic. Now they haven't had it professionally remediated, and I'm not going to advise to like, oh yeah, just buy this. But I will tell my clients what my opinion of it is. And my opinion is for about $2 or just a few $1,000s, we can get a bigger gable vent in here with not that much work. We can, take out this, we can put new vents in the side here on this overhang, and then we probably should be able to get enough ventilation. And, and of course, I'm not going to advise them to, not get it professionally remediated or anything, but doing that, getting that ventilation in there and getting that airflow moving through. Now that's what I would personally, and for a few $1,000s, all these other people are scared off and would have paid like $25,000 more for this property because they don't know how to solve that issue. And they're not really that experienced at it. So yeah. So my clients, if they're interested, we're gonna go see it, actually they're just calling me right now. Then we'll look at it and we'll put an offer on, if they like it, and I'm gonna tell them what I just told you guys. So right there, save my clients like they're probably $23,000 because this house would go more like 550 or more, and we might be able to pick it up for 500. So and that's what I like doing. It's like when you have like a real advantage, and that's why we do these things we talk to each other about and share our knowledge, is because who doesn't want to help their clients like save a lot of money and show the value, like, hey, you're paying me this much percent, but I'm saving you that much. Like, you showing your value is
How did you
key.
find out about the mold?
I called up the listing agent.
Oh, and then he told you that?
Yeah. So, and actually he was actually in roofing for 10 years. And so we talked a little bit about that, and we just formed a kind of a little bond for both being in construction and now in real estate. And so after we talked about that, he just kind of told me everything.
Nice.
So everything he knew. So yeah. And that's another thing. Finding a bond with the listing agent is pretty key.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have a question. So when it comes to, let's say that your client wants to purchase the home, how would you go about negotiating that with the contract?
Well, I mean, it's, the listing agent, he kind of told me like why the last people backed out was due to that. Basically what I will probably do is kind of talk with them and like, hey, talk to them about my clients, which I kind of already prepped. Like, they're great credit. They don't look at a house without putting an offer in. We're looking for a close. It will close. But then I also we're aware of the mold. And so this is why our offer is this. And we're not going to, raise, that's not going to keep us from there. You've already been upfront with me and stuff like that, unless something else is like crazy. So which, even though will be contingent on a sale of their other house, but I will have that sale. And I would probably sell pretty quickly. That just them knowing a little assurance that this will go to a close and this isn't going to hold it up because they already had one. They've already had it on the market. And they've tried to list it a couple of times. They had people fall through because they bring up the mold, and then they back out, want to run away. So yeah, I pretty much will just be upfront with them. Like, yeah, we're aware of the mold, as long as it's what you say it is and stuff. And that's gonna be fine. It's not, we're gonna bring it to the close, considering. So just that assurance is what I would do. Matt, Kyle, do you guys have anything else on that?
As far as like yeah, I mean, as long as you know that if they accept an offer, what are they asking on this property?
5.
Okay. So yeah, Deja, I would say out here, it's like negotiating up front probably isn't going to get you a deal. Like if you're trying to like really undercut price based on known facts, it's kind of, again, this one might be a little bit unique because it's already been under contract and fallen out, it sounds like, but for the most part, you're not really able to negotiate too much upfront on known issues. Even a lot of contracts that are accepted have needed to be in kind of as is condition, with a right to inspect, but not really ask for objections. That's case by case. You might be able to get away with objections in this one because it's already been off the market or under contract once and fallen out. But it sounds like if you've already had the discussion on mold, most likely that's not going to be a negotiation topic. But that doesn't mean necessarily that there may not be other topics that you could negotiate over during inspection. Does that kind of make sense from your perspective, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I would be similar to that, but be upfront. So just make, like, we're not going to try and negotiate so much like that. So, whatever we offer, so we're not trying to offer that we're going to like undercut the price. I mean, it's a pretty good, I mean, this is like 1,800 square foot, and like out here, that's homes with that much square footage, can go $100,000 more. And in this location, it's actually in a pretty good location too, but also kind of away from people, which is what my clients want. I would really just be upfront with them and it's like, hey, we're offering this and we're aware of the mold issue. We're not going to like try and ding you on every little freaking thing. we want to bring this to a close.
Yeah.
That's basically what I would just try and stress and sell to the listing agent. Hey, we're trying to bring this to the close, and that maybe get a good deal so they don't have to go through this whole process again where they get through inspection and everything else, and it just falls out. So
What kind of acreage is the property on?
I think it's like 2 acres.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, 2 acres, and it's like up at between Ward and Blackhawk.
Oh, okay,
Like,
nice.
yeah, so it's freaking awesome location.
Yeah, so 277 a square foot on 2 acres seems like pretty good, a reasonable number to me.
Yeah. So we've been looking for a while, and this is one that came up, and so I kind of. And this is how I've always bought properties. I look for those things that's scaring everyone else off. like that's how you get a deal. I never want to buy a perfect property. Like let something that's going to scare people off, and you can kind of see. Look, I like to put a few little things up here. But still probably don't have enough.
So a lot of Dejo, a lot of what I do is I do price first. I do the price first, and then do that because you have your inspection periods and you have all that everything else that you're gonna do your inspections and all that extra stuff involved with it. I literally just talked to a client about this yesterday where we negotiate the price first. Whether it's I'll give you an example. So on my own personal house, we bought our house 4 years ago. Granted, different market, but we negotiated down $15,000 in the price itself, and then on top of that, we did about $1,000 worth of inspection, plumbing inspection, fireplace inspections, everything else involved, and we had about $16,000 worth of repairs and things done to it as well. So the way I always tell clients is, listen, we're gonna do price first. We're gonna work on that. Then we're gonna do our inspections because I have the same background, not the same. I have 4 years old was not when I started in construction, but Jim and I have the same degree where I have that background and I can go through and tell people a lot of the same things, but listen, but it's always listen, I'm not a licensed contractor. I'm not a structural engineer. I always give those disclosures as far as that goes, but we need to have these kind of people look at it because here's the thing is that when we have those licensed engineers and those licensed professionals come in and look at it, then we actually have we have ammunition to go back at people and say, hey, listen, we found this, and this. We want you to fix these things. And that's where that comes in. So we do price first, and then I always do fixes later.
Yeah, Kyle brings up a good point. Yeah, you got to be very careful, but it's not so much that you're like, okay, yeah, this is like, I'm telling you guys a lot of stuff just based on that, but like, I'm not going to tell them like, hey, a few $1,000s, but I will, it's about knowing who to call. So rather than ordering all the inspectors and all the structural engineers and everything on every freaking property, like, okay, we can see there's a problem here. Let's get like a structural engineer out, if it's foundation or whatever else. Because, even though you might know more than an inspector, you don't want to make sure that you are sticking to your license and just kind of helping your clients out, but not getting into, a sticky situation, which, it's tough for me, but because if I see something, I like to point it out, but, always get that second party to like show it's like, okay, this license to do that. Look at this thing. But here's just another thing. I just saw this. So this is very common in I see a lot of houses like this. They like throw this like metal over here on top of the fireplace, and then it like just starts leaking. And like this trim board, like I bet this is completely rotted out. And it's a real pain in the ass to like replace this. And then because like that, it's like wrapped around it and stuff. But a lot of times it leaks, so it starts leaking here. And it's so a lot of them aren't this easy and this visible, but I guarantee you this says all the siding needs to be replaced and it's all completely rotted out, all the way probably down to here. And that's just another thing that like to watch out for, because it's not terribly easy. I've had so many clients want me to replace this stuff because it's super common where Kyle lives, where I used to have my company at. You start seeing spots like this. Make sure you take a look at the inspection report and make sure that they notice that too. And you can talk with the inspector. I was like, hey, so what do you think about this? Like, saw there's a big skid mark here. I've kind of been talking for a while. So what else do you guys want to head inside and check out some things? Or
yeah, sure.
Okay. If I could sort it. Let's just head inside.
Sweet views.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looks super nice. Oh my gosh.
But here's the thing with any house. I mean, again, the bad thing is that realtors actually are very good photographers, or at least they try to be. And you have to just be honest when you're walking through a house. I mean, that's the biggest thing about all of it. If you see something that you think is wrong, tell them exactly that line where it's listen, I'm not a licensed structural engineer, but I think we need to have somebody look at this, or whatever it may be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, here's something right here. Okay. So it looks like, oh, that's a really pretty bathroom. It looks like it's fairly updated. It looks like they put a new vanity and stuff like that. But one thing just jumps out to me right away. Looks like they tiled all the way up here, and you got this shower head. Gonna take a shower, and looks like this is just a wood window. And I will guarantee you, there's gonna be rot right here, a lot right here, some right here. And actually, I think we can kind of see it. So, and it's something like, of course, I deal with this shit. Replace a ton of windows, but that to me is not an expensive fix. I'll tear out that window and I can just put in a new like vinyl window and do like maybe even do an obscure glass so people can't see in, even though it's kind of up high. But that's not too big of a deal. And then put some tile to kind of wrap it around it so I don't have any wood showing, and making sure that that's really sealed well. But if that got back behind here and has rotted out, and you can also check the outside and see if there's kind of rot, because I think this is probably that masonite siding, that crap, pressed cardboard crap that we see everywhere. That's just terrible. So yeah, that's what I would do on that. I'm not sure. This might be another thing, hazards, egress. So when you're looking at a house, to make sure, especially if they say all the bedrooms are conforming, pretty much the number one thing that makes a bedroom not conforming is not having the proper amount of egress. Now, you'll see a lot of places like, oh yeah, it looks like there's a place you can get out and stuff. But once you get out, that window well needs to be like 3 feet by 3 feet as well. And a lot of places don't have that unless it's a newer build. So, they might be listing, oh yeah, it's conforming. And it also can be dependent on when the place was built, but basically just make sure that you can basically get out. And so if clients are, oh yeah, we can do this, and they're going to stick their 12-year-old down there and just like point out to them, like, yeah, if you're fine with it, it's fine. So not that big of a deal, pretty basic. Now I'm looking at all these pictures in real time now. So if you guys see something, please see something, say something.
What?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, I like it for 500 for sure. And I kind of really like that mold in the attic, or previous mold.
Foundation issues are usually my favorite to play with.
What's that?
Foundation issues are my favorite to play with.
Why
Oh,
do you
yeah.
say?
Because
Scared.
everybody's still scared of them, and it's such an easy fix. I shouldn't say easy, but it's a fix. Like, here's the route that I take on everything. Everything's fixable. Period. Doesn't matter. It just depends on the price.
Yeah. Kyle, if it's so easy, why don't you go get my in Manhattan, my house, the foundation fix on that?
Because you want too much on yours. Your house, you want too much for yours.
And I hit the shit out.
Nothing's really jumping out on me on this stuff. Oh, it's got a little stream. Hell yeah. Ooh, and a little bit. Cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's,
Oh my gosh.
if they don't buy it,
You looking at that?
I am very interested in this place for myself. Man, hell yeah.
Is this house on a well?
I check. I don't know.
Down a little further. Yep.
Oh, well.
Yep.
Well, and septic tank. So, yeah, probably want to check and see when the last time that septic tank and inspection was. And
Yeah. But the counties require them to be cleaned out here. So you'll get a county certification on the septic tank. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be scoped. Like for example, I had a client under contract on a property in Bailey, and we had the report from the county that the septic tank had been cleaned and had passed their inspection, but they don't check the plumbing lines from the house to the septic tank. So when we had it scoped, there was actually a big hole in the plumbing line between the house and the tank. So that whole line needed to be replaced.
Okay.
The PVC was cracked. So certainly something to take into consideration. Also with respect to the wells, well tests are pretty common out here. So what somebody testing on the well will do is they'll come out and they'll do like a flow test. So they'll pump it dry, if it can be pumped dry, and they'll see what the replenish rate is. So then you know how many gallons per hour that well produces. The well test will also test for bacteria. What it doesn't test for is radioactivity. And in Evergreen, where I live, there are wells that have been deemed radioactive. So I always at least advise my clients that you can do a test for that as well. That is a fixable problem. You can put in like reverse osmosis filtration systems. But the way it was found out, actually one of the most prominent streets in my whole neighborhood with multi-million-dollar homes, people's dogs were dying at a young age. So then they found out that there was radioactive decay in their well systems. So something to take into consideration when you have clients looking at properties with well and septic.
well, I think this property is like, what, 10 miles directly west of where they store a lot of radioactive material or?
Yeah, I don't know, but it would be something that I would certainly mention, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, we're happy to help.
One of the biggest things that people, I heard about the septic and whatnot. One of the biggest things that people forget to actually check is actual age of a sewer system and everything that way. When tree roots get into clay pipe and clay tile and everything that way, and that's one of the biggest things that people get so pissed off about after they buy a house. You don't think about it. Most people don't think. So if you really, the biggest thing as a real estate agent, what I would tell you is that being able to know what to expect and knowing. So Jim, you might help me with this one, but it's about 1960, 1970 when they started changing the actual, getting rid of the clay tile and cast iron pipe going out of the ground. Is that right?
What's that? Sorry, I was writing something
The-
down. Yeah,
yeah,
let's go with
age-
somewhere around
Age
there.
of the house. It's about 1960s, 1970s. Just kind of paying attention to the actual age of the house for the cast iron and clay tile, and actually knowing that there could be roots. Could be roots in the sewer line and everything that way. I've had one when I bought my house. I promise you, it's not a piece of shit. But when I bought my house, the plumber went in and was like, "Hey, if you wouldn't have had this replaced, your sewer line was 80% blocked. You would have had sewage in your basement within a month." So, but I had the sellers pay for it because I had a sewer line inspection. I had all of that kind of stuff taken care of. So, actually getting those inspections is actually crazy important, and most people don't think about it.
And speaking about the inspections, here it's been pretty crazy. A lot of people have been doing, which I personally don't agree with, is that some of the realtors are advising their buyers to waive their inspection just so they can get the offer. Is that going on near you? Because that sounds like crazy lawsuits in the future for
So
that.
my opinion on it is never waive an inspection.
Yeah.
Now you might are always doing an inspection on a property. Around here we do waive the inspection resolution. So we're not going to come back and like, hey, ding in for this. We're kind of buying it as is, but we are reserving the right to walk away if there's something on there that we don't like. So we will always, I mean, not everyone always, but like me personally, I always reserve that for my client to walk away. So is that kind of what people are doing, or are they completely waiving inspections, everything, like even their get out of?
Yeah, exactly. They're just waiving everything just to get the the deal. They'll waive everything because here it's like it's not as bad just because interest rates have been going up, so a lot of buyers have been in it have gone out, but it's still pretty competitive. But I mean, I've put an offer in for a home that had 45 plus offers, so it is crazy.
To me, waiving inspections could be considered negligent. The only way I would ever do it is if my client was an inspector, or maybe like Jim, like a contractor that knew how to take care of a majority of problems, and the client completely knew and understood what they were getting to. If absent that, which I don't have any clients in that realm, I would never ever waive an inspection.
I bought a house without doing an inspection.
I have too.
That's for me. And I told him, and I got a great freaking deal on it, and it's been great. So, but I knew that there was a lot of stuff that's going to be, but could fix it. So I just want to get the freaking deal done, and they did too. So I got a really good deal. So
yeah.
So, but other than that, but if you're representing someone, then yeah, exactly what Matt said. Like they got to be like in construction or like an inspector. Other than that, I don't see why you would. But.
So Jim said it earlier. I would absolutely not ever give away the right to cancel the contract, because it's setting your buyers up for failure. It's setting your buyers up for failure if they don't know. Again, like Jim just said, and I think Matt said too, buying it as is fine if you know how to fix a lot of those things. But if you're doing that house isn't right for the buyers. I mean, that's the big though, because you're as is fine, but without getting rid of the right to cancel and getting rid of the right to do those things, that's dangerous, very dangerous. So
I agree 100%.
Yeah, it'd be better to lose a deal than put your clients in a position to have to waive an inspection to get a contract done.
Right.
Totally agree. Another thing to kind of look at, lead. So if the house is pre-1978, then if people want to do renovations, the contractors who are working on that place, and anytime they disturb like more than 6 square feet on the house of like a painted surface, then they will have to do all sorts of documentation. Like they have to put plastic freaking everywhere, it's just it's a huge pain, especially even something that's like seems pretty simple. You really have to like contain that area, and there's just a lot of steps to that as a renovation contractor. So you can add 30 to 50% onto it. So a $10,000 project can be, $14,000 to $17,000. So that's just something also to just make your clients aware of, especially if you're kind of they're looking at a pre-1978 house. So 1977 and before, the contractors will have to, contain that lead. And lead is a pretty, it does mess with a lot of stuff, neurological and just all sorts of stuff. Kind of like why we had such high crime rate, like in 80s and early 90s. Lead gas is one of the theories, is because we had lead gas in the 70s and stuff like that. So which I think it very well could be a lot of that too. So and then there's another thing, just kind of fun knowledge to have, is that if it's a house that of course, like they were phasing out lead-based paint, and so a lot of times they weren't using it as much, like in the 60s and 70s. So it doesn't mean that pre-1978 it was used, but it also means that after 1978 it wasn't used, because someone could have paint from 10 years beforehand, and in the 80s it's a lead-based paint and they're using it. So it's not exact. So, but it's a good, there's going to be a little buffer there. Now, if you're looking at like early 1900s houses, and they're nice Victorians, or just kind of in nicer neighborhoods and kind of downtown and stuff, where you're most likely to have that lead-based paint is on the exterior. And the nicer the house, the more likely you're going to have lead-based paint, because how they did it back in those days, they'd have their paint, and then they have like a mixture of how, if you wanted like a 20-year paint, you add like 10 ounces to it. And this is just example to it. If you want like a 30-year paint, then you add more lead to it. So you add more lead to get that, made it a better paint. So that's why it was used so much. So that's why the nicer houses is actually the ones that you'll have it. And of course, you're going to find it more on the exterior than you will on the interior, because they're not going to, they're going to spend the money on the nicer paint for the outside of the house to make it last longer, since that's where you're going to have, the weathering and most of that stuff. So just a little side note on that. But any questions on that stuff?
Can you tell by looking at paint, or is it just age based?
No, you can tell by eating it. It'll be a little sweeter.
Pass.
Don't eat paint. Don't eat paint. For all those that are watching this later, don't eat paint chips.
Yeah, no idea what he just said. But yeah, Kyle ate a lot.
I said for all those eating paint chips later, don't do it.
No, so what you can do, and this is just for your own personal knowledge, like you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and they have like these little sticks, and you'll break that stick and it'll combine the things, and you'll rub it on kind of the part where you kind of disturb the surface, like you kind of cut into that paint a little bit, and then you can rub that on there, and then I think it will turn red if it's lead. Now that's one thing you can do. That you can't use that for anything except really your own personal knowledge on your own personal house. But outside that, so I'm a licensed EPA renovation contractor and stuff like that, and have been since 2012. But the other thing is, they can come out. You can have someone. So a lot of times the same people who test for mold and different things like that. And they have these X-ray or gamma ray. I forgot exactly which ray guns they are, and they can shoot throughout the house and give you a full report. And I don't know what prices around here, but we get that done for less than $1,000. And sometimes if it's a big project and it's a 1975 home, I would do that a lot, is have them come out there, because they could shoot, and they'll give you an entire report. So I remember one house we had it that we would have to do a ton of plastic and controlling the lead and stuff like that. And the house was not, it was like a 1975 house. So we had them come out there, and they didn't find any lead except for one doorway that we weren't even touched. So I have that report. So when I get audited, I can say, hey, we didn't disturb any of this. So we didn't really have to do it, all the extra precautions, because we never even touched that area. So sometimes people might want to get that for their own knowledge and stuff. Maybe they have young kids and stuff, and want to for their own security. But the only problem with that is if you do get it tested and it does come out and like the whole entire exterior and most of the inside is lead, well, here, do you have to disclose that, Matt?
What, lead?
Yeah, if you find lead, I know that in Kansas it definitely
Yeah.
did. Yeah. So if you did that, then yeah, that's good to know. But then now you're gonna have to disclose it if you find anything. So it's kind of I don't know. I got mixed feelings on that because you get it tested, like, oh, now I gotta disclose it. But so a lot of people just don't. But I'm not advising you on this, but red is lead. Test sticks, they're $10 at Home Depot. Who's gonna know? not advice. I'm just saying, what way would they be able to know if you did? So freezing pipes, see that quite a bit around here, especially like sprinklers, irrigation, like the pipe going out, it's not heat tracing on it or it's not insulated. That happens. That happens to probably like a third of the homeowners I know around here already that have that first. So I just have to kind of check out on that. Old plumbing, especially like an older house, that's like the galvanized steel, that gets, you could have like a 1-inch pipe and then within, the timeline of that house, you just got like a little pinhole and just got a lot of like really bad water pressure and really kind of just have to, replace everything and replace the water heater. And so you can not have all that corrosion and stuff and not have to keep on like clean out your faucets and stuff like that. But it's not like a huge thing. It's just kind of, people like good water pressure. Don't eat insulation. It's not cotton candy. That's a hazard.
What about asbestos, Jim?
I was trying to keep away from asbestos.
Okay.
I was trying to avoid that topic. Same freaking deal. It's kind of like lead. You're gonna have it in most of these old homes. If you remove it and stuff, make sure that it is properly mitigated and removed for that, because asbestos is pretty crazy. Actually, my father-in-law died because of asbestos that he, from all the way back when he was a kid, was playing with it, and then killed him 50 years later. So,
jeez.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the stuff. Hazards of the home. Like, so what we try and do here is you can find a lot of that basic information, the basic shit that people are posting on their Instagram and stuff, but we want to give you the information that you're not going to hear from everywhere else, like the real stuff. So that's kind of reason why we did this, because like there's just a lot that you're just not going to find this information on. It is, the mold is a huge freaking deal. Like, it took a long time for me to get the mold out of my fan. There's not really an easy way to do it. To get rid of mold, make sure you got the ventilation. Make sure you get that humidity down to like below 40%. Also kill mold, because if you got mold, if you're sitting at over 55% humidity in that place, you're most likely going to get mold. And if you don't, then it can just slowly eat away at you, and you're just going to feel tired and tired throughout the years and years and years. And then before you just can't anymore in the morning. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And then lead, can kill a lot of people, and that's a pretty serious thing too. I know we kind of just oh yeah, lead, mold, whatever, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal because it's everywhere, but you start getting decent amounts in it, it can really screw up your life. And then especially if you like pre-existing conditions. When you're renovating, I see this a lot with like home flippers. They're like, oh, we're going to do like an open concept and stuff, and like just take out oh, that's not a load bearing wall. But the thing is, just because a wall is not load bearing does not mean that wall is not important to the structure of the house. So I don't remember off the top of my head exactly, but there's a certain amount that you can go, but you have to put walls in that will help with the shear force. So just imagine you have like a little gingerbread house and you push on it from the side. If it's just a complete square, it's going to fall down pretty easy. But if you have walls inside that will help with that shear force on there. So even though it's not a load bearing wall, it might help with that wind shear, the lateral forces against that house. And I do see that a lot. They do it's not load bearing, so just tear it all out. Well, some of those walls are important, even though they're not load. I just want to say that because I feel like unless they have a contractor's license, no one seems to freaking understand that. Especially home flippers, they're the worst. Sorry, Kyle, but Kyle's a good one. That's pretty much all.
I make sure my stuff's done right.
I know. I just complimented you, Kyle. I said Kyle's a good one. So anyways, that's pretty much, I kind of covered the biggest things that I kind of see as far as hazards in the home. So let's just open discussion. Anything you guys want to talk about? Deja, anything at all. like any related to real estate or what? So
Yeah, I think from our perspective here in Colorado, we don't have to worry about really water intrusion that much just because we don't have copious amounts of rain. Most is like what your runoff is going to look like in the snow melt, right? But I'm sure Deja down in Florida, you guys have a fair amount of rain, right? So water
Oh,
would
for
be
sure.
something that would be a major concern for me in any property. We had what I'm originally from Chicago, and we had water issues in some properties, and it's hugely concerning. One thing I don't think people think about a lot out here is the snow loads too, Jim. Like you were talking about the structure of the home, and snow loads can be pretty heavy here too.
Yeah.
So pretty important to have solid roofing. I've seen quite a few houses in Evergreen where I'm at where you'll have some drooping in the roofs. So it's some of these hazards in my eyes are geographic dependent, right?
That's a good point too, because I mean that can be an easy thing to kind of fix. Like when you replace your roof,
Sure.
or not fix, but like to put in, like, hey, put heat tracing underneath those tiles, and then that doesn't cost much electricity at all, and get that melt off, so you don't have like 6 feet of snow because that. I don't know. I know a lot of times around the country it's like 20, 25 pounds per square foot extra load that you design for, but up here in the mountains, who knows? That could be about. Well, I mean, there's charts on it, but it got could be 100 extra pounds of square foot, which is
Sure.
a ton. So
yeah, I know like the big homes down valley, they all have heat tape on the roofs to melt the snow. I haven't seen as much here, but I'm sure it exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that it's more like geographically based because here we deal with a lot of hurricanes and stuff, so we have different flood zones, and that's disclosed whenever you purchase a home, like what flood zone you're in, because that determines usually the insurance that you have, because it can get really expensive depending on what flood zone you're in.
Sure.
And also things such as like windows, like if you have like hurricane windows installed, then your insurance is going to be less rather than a home that doesn't have the hurricane windows installed. So definitely it depends on what location you're in.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. We have to deal a lot with wildfires here. So, we'll look at like tree mitigation to limit fires jumping tree to tree around properties. And if you properly mitigate your property, your hazard insurance can decrease as well.
So Deja, that's actually one thing I did have actually in here in flooding, and with being in Florida, I know a lot of stuff was kind of a lot more that we deal with like in Colorado. I mean, of course in Florida you're gonna deal with a lot of mold and stuff because of all that high humidity. So, and it's not as big of a deal out here, which is one of the reasons I moved out to Colorado actually, is to get away from freaking mold. So but the other thing is, like if you're in a very wet climate and stuff, is, check the baseboards on the interior, especially if there's a basement. You can kind of take like your pin or whatever and just kind of like poke at it, like at the bottom and stuff, and look for the same things that we kind of saw here, as far as on that side of that chimney, like brown spots like coming up and stuff on the side of baseboards and stuff like that, because it might not look like, oh, it doesn't look too damaged, but that could be a very good indication that there has been flooding in that place before. So, and same disclosure, like you're just all realtors here, but we get an inspection report like, hey, did you check this out? Like just want to make sure. So you definitely have to add the most value to your clients and stuff is, understand what the inspector is doing and what he's looking for, because, he might be like a really nice guy or woman and stuff, but then you might find out like, oh, this person actually keeps on missing a bunch of stuff. And I'm going to stop recommending, because a lot of people like it's not too difficult to get your inspector's license, but it takes a lot of knowledge and training and time and experience to know these little things to look for. So, and not all of them, are required to have like 10 years and everything else. So I probably should stop talking. I'm not talking crap on inspectors, but but if you have one that was like a former contractor, because there is quite a few of them out there that were former contractor turned into inspectors, I would definitely talk with them about that stuff, because there's just a lot of knowledge that you just gain by doing this stuff that really can add extra value. So, well, Kyle, you had your hand raised. What's up? Are you taking a swing? You might be the golf. Well, that's all I got. We could kind of talk about a little bit of market update, what we're seeing in Colorado. course, interest rates are rising. Jerome Powell announced that they are going to go up 50 basis points. So, can have a little bit of effect on mortgage rates. People are saying a lot of that might have been baked in because it came in. He announced that, and that's what it was expected to announce. But he said next couple of meetings that another 50 basis points is not off the table. So we could be looking at a lot higher rate. Actually, I'm going to go, my clients were kind of at a lull and like, oh, the interest rates are going up. We're not going to be afforded, but they also have a house to sell. I'm like, well, we're already seeing kind of a slowdown in like the, 700,000, 750 and up houses and properties. That starter properties, so like the 500K properties and stuff are still being fairly strong. I think people are, if it's like $500,000 and less, 30 to 40 offers was very common. And I think people are seeing a little bit less. And now we've got Mother's Day this weekend. A lot of people aren't shopping. People are scared of the interest rates. It's looking like it's going to go up. So it's kind of an ideal time to call any of your clients that are kind of sitting on the sidelines, like, hey, let's get moving, especially if they have one house to sell and they want to buy another. Like, well, let's go that. And if they're like, well, I want to pay 5.5% or whatever, like, okay, well, what if they fall? Do you want to wait for that dip? And then all this other buyers who've been trying to buy and are having buyer fatigue and now stay on the sidelines, and you want to compete with them again? Or when that time comes, do you just want to do a refi and get that lower rate? I mean, a refi is a couple $1,000s to do that and lock in that lower rate, whereas competing with 30 other people can be, $30, $40, $50,000 more. So that's kind of what I did with mine. If you have anyone like that, I kind of recommend that kind of strategy. Matt, I know you know a lot more about this stuff than I do. So do you have anything to add?
About rates?
Well, rates are, how it affects us, like how to get our buyers moving. If we have some people that were kind of scared about them. And
yeah, I mean, to me, one thing I think is like, depending on what your affordability is, to get into the game, you need to like look at what the appreciation's looking like, right? And ultimately, you're levering your wealth. So no one knows what rates are going to do. It's better just to get in, and if they drop, you can refinance. If they go up, you're going to be in a better position and have better buying power now than in the future. So I always recommend getting into the game regardless of rates, if you can afford it, and because you could miss out on a lot more from an appreciation perspective if you don't get into the game.
Rates in the 80s were insane. Everyone wished they had property in the 80s.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was just going to say. In our lifetime, I literally said this today, that in our lifetime, rates were in 13, 14, 15%. So it's not unheard of to have that. I mean, the 5%, like that sounds high right now, but only because everybody forgot 3 years ago. Shit, I bought my house 4 years ago, and I had a rate of 4.6%. So
yeah, and it's one of those things where when I started lending money as a commercial banker, we were lending out at a corporate floating rate of 9.25%. So that's the tier 1 corporations. So most of our loans, multi-million-dollar lines of credit were lent at 9 prime plus 1, which was 10.25. So when you look at historical interest rates, low 5s is still a good rate. People just don't, they're so short-sighted, and they think of like, oh, well, I had an opportunity for a rate in the 2s, or I'd bought a property in the 2s. It's like, yeah, well, those days are gone. I would be shocked if we ever see anything in the 2s the rest of our lives. We might see 4s and 3s again, but I would be floored if we see anything in the 2s ever again. I could be wrong. Look, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I wouldn't be selling houses.
I refied in February of 2021 for it was under 3, so I was pretty happy.
Yeah, we're on 299 on a 30-year fix. So, and I'm not unhappy about it. It's also, I have to think about that from a refi perspective, because my house has gained so much equity. What do I do with that equity? Just sitting there. It's not doing me any good. And I can't refi and pull cash out because I'm going to be at a higher rate. You know what I mean? So that's another consideration to make.
Save it for a rainy day. You never know what the future holds.
Yeah.
Great to have that from experience. I know you never know when you're going to get hit with.
Yeah, but you still have to do something to tap that equity, even if it's a home equity line of credit, right? Like there's no way to just yeah. And then even then, like we are looking at a HELOC, and your rates are, you're going to be on a floating interest rate in the 5s.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Cool. Yeah, I got to run.
Okay.
Good topic, man.